welcome to Live Interactive English. I'm Matt.
Hi, I'm Kiki.
Today we're looking at part 2 of Why Are Brits So Obsessed with the Weather? So, weather comes up a lot in conversation, and I know that you spend a lot of your life in Singapore. So how is the weather there?
Oh, it can be kind of crazy sometimes. For example, it could be really bright and sunny out, but suddenly there would be a rain cloud that just starts traveling and then it starts raining like cats and dogs.
Okay, so raining very hard.
Very
It's another
hard.
special rain term, cats and dogs.
Yeah, and I remember one time when I came home from school, I had to cross the road to get home. Okay, so I got off the bus, but suddenly it just started raining and I couldn't cross the road because I didn't bring an umbrella.
Okay.
So I had to decide if I was going to run across with my backpack and all my textbooks or wait out the rain at the bus stop.
Okay.
Because sometimes the rain only lasts about 20, 30 minutes.
Okay.
So it's doable. But also in Singapore, when it rains, it gets really stuffy.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, and really warm too. So waiting for it would be kind of annoying too.
Okay, so what did you decide to do?
I ran across with my backpack.
Okay, and did you have to tell your teacher the next day that my homework's destroyed, it was too rainy, I can't hand in my homework?
Yes.
Really?
And you know what? We were lucky though, because our teachers were so used to it.
Okay.
They actually accepted that as an excuse.
Well, that's good then. Maybe you can just throw your backpack in the pool next time you don't want to do your homework.
I fell in the pool.
Yeah.
They would accept that too.
Okay. All right, well, let's get into part 2 of this article and find out more about why the Brits are so obsessed with the weather.
So what's at the root of this obsession? One explanation is that British weather is very unpredictable. In general, the country's climate follows the 4 seasons and has wet springs, sunny summers, windy falls, and cold winters. However, Brits can often experience all of these conditions in one day. This certainly gives them something to talk about. Some academics argue that there is a deeper cultural reason, though. Cultures in the Middle East and South America prioritize being open with strangers.
Hello everyone, today we're looking at part 2 of Why Are Brits So Obsessed with the Weather? So in part 1, we learned that Brits are very obsessed with the weather and they talk about it a lot, and even so much so that they've developed these new words for many different kinds of weather. But in this part 2, we're going to talk about why they're obsessed with the weather.
Okay, great. So let's get right into our article. So, what's at the root of this obsession? One explanation is that British weather is very unpredictable. So why are Brits or why are British people always talking about the weather? Why are they obsessed, or why do they just care so much? So an explanation, or one way of explaining, or one reason for that, is because the weather in Great Britain is very unpredictable. When something is unpredictable, you can never tell, or you can never predict, or you never know what is going to happen or what might happen. So in this case, the weather is unpredictable. You never know how the weather will change throughout the day.
Nice. In general, the country's climate follows the 4 seasons and has wet springs, sunny summers, windy falls, and cold winters. Okay, so those are the normal seasons that people are used to in most of the northern hemisphere, at least, where I'm from in Canada as well. So that's describing the climate. So the climate is the weather patterns of a particular place or region over a period of time. So we talk about the climate of a country, or the climate of, usually of a city, because a country can be large and not have one single climate. but the climate being, how hot or cold it gets throughout the year at certain times of year and what kind of weather they generally have. An example, the climate is very cold in the north of the country.
Okay, so even within one country, it can have different climates. All right. However, Brits can often experience all of these conditions in one day.
Okay, so it's all seasons of weather within one day.
Wow, that's really interesting. This certainly gives them something to talk about. Okay, so when you are living through a day and you're experiencing all this different type of weather, that's definitely something worth discussing. For example, maybe I saw you this morning and it was sunny, and then by the time I get home and you see that I'm soaked because it was raining.
All right, well, we'd have to talk about that.
Definitely.
Okay. Some academics argue that there is a deeper cultural reason, though. Okay, so academics would be people working in institutions of higher learning like universities and places like that where they are doing research and studying things. So if someone is an academic, there's something like a professor or a researcher. Cultures in the Middle East and South America prioritize being open with strangers. Okay, so they prioritize it, meaning they put it first. They put it at an important place.
Okay, so this has something to do with the topic of small talk, and when you are meeting somebody for the first time and you have to have small talk, you might not get into things that are too personal. So maybe something about weather would be more appropriate. So that might be a cultural thing. So the academics are arguing that it's more about a cultural thing, that some people might not be comfortable talking to a stranger about their life. So here we have the verb argue. And when we think of argue, it's when two people or two groups of people, they have opposing views of a topic, and then they will kind of fight about it. They'll have their own ideas and they'll throw it out there. But in this case, when we have argue and the academics are arguing, they're not really fighting with each other, but instead they're taking out their evidence or their proof to support the ideas that they are learning about, or their opinion on a topic or a matter, right? A subject matter. Okay, so for example, Leo argues that everyone should learn to cook.
Okay.
So he thinks that everyone should cook.
So they mentioned there about relating to the cultural norms of an area. So cultural is an adjective and it means referring to the social patterns of a certain group of people. So when we talk about a culture, we're talking about all the things that represent a group of people in terms of their, writing, their language, their artwork, the way that they speak to each other. All of this is part of their culture, and cultural is just an adjective meaning related to culture. So for example, there are many cultural differences between Taiwan and the United States.
Okay, so now we're not just talking about the weather because it's just something that the Brits experience in a whole day. They might experience all these different weather patterns, but now we're moving into the fact that maybe the topic of weather as a conversation starter is more appropriate culturally, right? Okay, so we're going to find out more after the break.
Hello， 大家好，我是 Hanny。我们今天要来看看英国人如此着迷于天气的根源。那有一种解释是，英国天气非常难以预测。一般来说啊，他们的气候是依循着四季变化，有潮湿的春季、阳光明媚的夏季、 有风的秋季、寒冷的冬季。不过呢，英国人却常常可以在1天之内就经历所有这些天气情况，也就是1天就体验到4季了。这确实会是个很好谈论的话题。不过呢，有一些学者认为有更深层的这个文化原因。我们来看单字 climate。Climate 是表示气候，那么 argue 这个动词则表示主张、认为。Kiki 老师在讲到对立的观点时，他用到 opposing，opposing 可以形容对立的。下一个单字 cultural， 它就是指文化的，与文化有关的。那这边一个重点，我们进入文法时间。这边我们来学习 at the root of 加名词，这是表达是什么的原因、根源。root 在这边它是指原因、缘由或者是根源的意思。例如 Amy wants to find out what is at the root of her anxiety. Amy 想找出自己焦虑的原因。好，那接话课文中。
In contrast, the British seek to avoid bothering people when they meet them. Therefore, people from countries like Brazil or Israel are often more direct and can ask questions that British people may consider rude. The weather, on the other hand, offers Brits the chance to communicate with other people, but not in a way that is too personal. So, if you ever visit the UK, just look up at the sky and start talking about it. You'll fit right in.
Before the break, we talked about how certain countries or certain regions, they will prioritize different things like being more open when they first meet somebody and they start a new conversation. Whereas for British people, they might feel a little more conservative or more private when they are meeting someone for the first time. So a topic like weather might be more appropriate for them.
So let's get into it. In contrast, the British seek to avoid bothering people when they meet them. Okay, so this word seek, you might have heard before that seek means to look for or to try to find something. But when we use it as seek to plus another verb, as in to seek to do something, we mean to try or attempt to do something. So in this case, British people try not to bother people. For example, I always seek to avoid arguments when I am with my family.
Okay, so when they're meeting someone for the first time, they're starting their conversation, they don't want to bother people, so they won't start with heavier topics. Okay, so let's continue with the article. Therefore, people from countries like Brazil or Israel are often more direct and can ask questions that British people may consider rude. Okay, so when somebody is direct, they are very open with the way they talk. They might use words that are kind of not very subtle, okay? Whereas the British people, when they hear these types of direct questions or conversations, they might feel a little more uncomfortable. They might think that they're being rude. So here we have the adjective rude. When somebody is rude, they're being impolite. They're being in some cases, too direct. Okay, so rude can also be doing things that are not very nice to people. Sometimes it's on purpose. Most of the time when somebody chooses to be rude, it's on purpose. Now, why they want to do that depends on the individual. But usually when somebody is being rude, it's not very nice. They're being bad-mannered. They are not polite, so it's something that we don't really like. So for example, the things you said about me were rude and upsetting. So someone has said something about someone that's not very nice.
The weather, on the other hand, offers Brits the chance to communicate with other people, but not in a way that is too personal. Okay, so it's a way to not, dig into their personal life. It's just something that everyone knows about because everyone knows how the weather is or on a particular day.
So if you ever visit the UK, Just look up at the sky and start talking about it. You'll fit right in.
Okay, so we do have a what do you think question. So Kiki, what is your go-to topic of conversation when you meet somebody for the first time?
Well, I usually start discussing the weather.
Okay.
Yeah, I also find that it's when you're meeting somebody, you're still trying to get a feel of where they might be from, what culture they're from, so how they might react to things. So I do use the weather to kind of start the conversation and then let it grow from there.
Okay, well, I don't like small talk, so I usually just avoid it if I can. So I usually just won't start a conversation if I don't feel I have to.
Well, then how do you meet new people?
Well, I have enough friends.
Okay, well, that's it for us today. We've learned a little bit about how a conversation starter like the weather can help you make new friends.
That's right. So we'll see you next time. Goodbye.
刚刚说到，有些学者认为有更深层的这个文化原因，中东和南美的文化会优先考虑对陌生人坦诚。那相较之下，英国人跟人相见的时候，则会试图避免打扰对方。因此啊，来自巴西或是以色列等国家的人，往往都是比较直接，那可能就会问到那种英国人认为无理的问题。另一方面，天气则给了英国人跟其他人交流的机会，而不会用到太过私人的方式来跟对方交流。好，我们看单字 seek。seek 这个动词表示寻求、寻找，它的三态是 seek、sought。那当我们用 seek to 加上原形动词，则是表达试图怎么样怎么样。然后看到 rude 这个形容词，它是形容无理的、粗鲁的。Kiki 老师提到，讲话很直接、很直白的时候，就不会使用到那种隐晦巧妙的话语了。那老师用到 subtle，S-U-B-T-L-E，subtle 可以形容是隐约的、微妙的或是细致的。好，这是一个重点，我们进入文法时间。好，我们来看这个重点是表示对比的片语。那么以下会介绍两个副词片语，用来表达与前述不同或对比的情况。好，第一个我们可以用到 in contrast， 这是指说相较之下、对比之下。contrast 在这边是当名词，用来指对比、差别。举例来说 ，It was warm and sunny yesterday. In contrast, it's cool and cloudy today. 昨天天气温暖又晴朗，那相较之下，今天则是凉爽且多云。好，那第二个我们可以用到 on the other hand 来指另一方面，它常常会跟 on the one hand 一方面合用，那它也可以单独使用，那可以摆在句首或是句中。例如，On the one hand, he wants to spend more time with his family, but on the other hand, he has to work overtime to earn more money. 一方面他想多花点时间陪伴家人，但另一方面他必须加班赚更多钱。好，那以上节讲解，同学别走开，马上回来哦。
So what's at the root of this obsession? One explanation is that British weather is very unpredictable. In general, the country's climate follows the four seasons and has wet springs, sunny summers, windy falls, and cold winters. However, Brits can often experience all of these conditions in one day. This certainly gives them something to talk about. Some academics argue that there is a deeper cultural reason, though. Cultures in the Middle East and South America prioritize being open with strangers. In contrast, the British seek to avoid bothering people when they meet them. Therefore, people from countries like Brazil or Israel are often more direct and can ask questions that British people may consider rude. The weather, on the other hand, offers Brits the chance to communicate with other people, but not in a way that is too personal. So, if you ever visit the UK, just look up at the sky and start talking about it. You'll fit right in.
Hi everyone! Today, we are going to visit an ancient road known as Nantian Ancient Road. Along this pathway, there are many things to see, including a bridge known as the Daoye Bridge, which is made up of 3 unexpected ingredients: glutinous rice, brown sugar, and clamshell ash. Sure, we know glutinous means like glue in texture or sticky, but glutinous rice and brown sugar is strong enough to keep a bridge intact for over a century? This, I gotta see. Nantian Ancient Road is a historic pathway. The road goes from the port of Bajang River to the Nanmen roundabout. You can see Daoye Bridge, Xuanxing Street, and Nantian Market along the way. Daoye Bridge is also called the Glutinous Rice Bridge. It was built in 1864. The bridge was made of glutinous rice, brown sugar, and clamshell ash. Now the bridge is covered by pavement. Xuanxing Street is also called Mango Road. In the past, many mango trees were planted on both sides of Xuanxing Street. However, most of them were removed. The local school and community are trying to take care of the remaining mango trees. Nantian Market is a traditional market. If you want a different trip from the rest, then come and visit Nantian Ancient Road in Jiayi City. Nantian Ancient Road, a path with not just a long history, but also many things to do and see for its modern travelers. Next time you come visit Jiayi, make sure to take a stroll along Nantian Ancient Road. You won't regret it.